Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining a little bit early. Welcome to the All Things Teams in Government call series. We're going to go ahead and get started in just about a minute or so. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this month's All Things Teams in Government session. If you're brand new here, Bridget and I created this series over a year ago now to help provide some needed government-specific content to our customers. We've had a blast watching this series grow and change and are excited to see where it continues to grow. If you saw our reminder email today, you know that we have an interesting topic, and that is the Skype to Teams transition and how to prepare for it from an adoption and change management perspective. So before we dive into the agenda today, let's go ahead and do some quick introductions. All right, so my name is Darby O'Brien. I am a customer success manager with Microsoft, and I am based out of the East Coast in Reston, Virginia.
And my name is Bridget Ballard. I'm also a customer success manager based out of Bellevue, Washington, covering the Pacific Northwest.
So like I said, today we're discussing the Skype to Teams transition from an adoption and change management perspective. So obviously there are some technical considerations to be had here for the migration, but that's not really the focus of our call today. If you need technical help, Microsoft can support you, so please reach out to your account team. But today's call is focused on the people side of change and how the Microsoft Customer Success Unit can support you through every step of that. Ultimately, we want you to get the most out of your investment with Microsoft. So today we want to share with you the adoption framework that we follow as CSMs, and we're going to show you all of the resources that are available to you every step of the way. We have a plethora of resources that we can tap on to help you. And the CSU was even built by nature to just help support you through these changes. So one thing I actually want to call out before I pass it over to Bridget to just discuss further what we're going to talk about today is today while we're presenting, I just ask that you check in with yourself and be honest about where you feel your organization currently is in the adoption process. There are absolutely no wrong answers to that. It's just a great exercise to start understanding what the next phase is for you. So check in with yourself, see where you think you fall, and feel free to let us know in the chat as well.
Thanks, Darby. That was a great overview and introduction of the Microsoft CSU. So the question that we're trying to answer is why does change management matter? So when Darby and I started, change management was a term that we'd heard thrown around a lot, but we didn't actually know the fundamentals and the meaning behind it. Internally at Microsoft, we follow the pro-side change management methodology. Within ProSci, they have 20 years of experience, and 80% of Fortune 100 companies follow these ProSci fundamentals. So our goal today is going to be to align these fundamentals specifically to your Skype for Business to Teams migration. Now, as Darby mentioned, you might be in different phases of the process. You may have already rolled out Teams, and you may be far along that journey. Regardless, these are great fundamentals to practice for any sort of rollout. And you might even see some fundamentals that you hadn't thought of before and want to go back and apply these within your organization and maybe even do a relaunch of your teams as well. So with that, Darby, let's kick it over to looking at some of our ProSci fundamentals. So before we go into our building blocks, I'd like to cover the biggest contributors to change management within an organization. Number one, you'll see there is executive sponsorship. When planning for change, it is crucial that you have buy-in at every step of the way, starting with your executives, and it's slowly going to trickle down within the organization. When planning your adoption and communication templates, your organization needs to hear from those executives. They need to hear from middle management to know that they are the ones behind the change and supporting everyone at every step of the way. A structured change management approach and having dedicated resources and funding are also critical to a successful change management rollout. And then lastly, I just want to call out employee engagement, participation, and open communication. So allowing employees to engage with one another, providing them access to their peers and specialists within the organization to be able to take it at their own pace, how they want to learn and how they want to grow with the change. Anything else there to add, Darby, before we kick it over to our AdCar model?
I don't think so. That sounds great.
So when thinking through our AdCar model, specifically, this is a fundamental designed by ProSci to walk through the different phases of change within your organization, but specifically aligned around the people side of change. So each one of these steps is specifically going to be related to what you should be conducting to get your users on board with the change. Starting from the top and moving down, we start with awareness. So making people aware that things need to change, why that change is occurring, what is going to happen throughout the timeline of the change. And then we go through our other phases of desire, knowledge, ability, giving them the resources to learn about this change, to learn about the new technology, and then we end with reinforcement. What are you going to do to actually solidify this change and make sure that people are adapting on it, being creative, and continuing that change within the organization? So how we're going to break down this next section is we're going to talk about each phase, and then we're going to show you what resources Microsoft has for you to accomplish this stage successfully. So we'll first start out in our awareness stage. This is our first building block for a successful change management. And within the awareness stage, the goal is to make people aware of what the change is, why it's needed, and even the risk of not changing. In this phase, your main goal is to get those communication templates out there, to make people aware that Skype is going away, that Teams is going to be the new mode of communication within the organization. And again, this is just a helpful building block to know for any sort of rollout that you're trying to do within your organization. So awareness phase, making people aware that change is about to happen. So if we go to our next slide, we'll walk through some of our resources and how the customer success unit at Microsoft can help you. So one of the biggest things in this phase is planning the actual adoption rollout and planning those communication templates. We have pre-built templates for you to utilize, and we will share all of those that we post after our call as well. So we have all of these for you. We have flyers, we have email templates that you can easily just go in and modify for your organization and send out. This is where you'll have those executive communications, those messages from middle management, even messages from peer-to-peer within the organization. We have all that built out for you. And then virtual Excite days and virtual lunch and learns. These are great ways to engage your organization face to face. I'm going to say this multiple times throughout the presentation, but a huge thing around just awareness and knowledge in general is that everyone learns in different manners. You can reach people in many different ways. Some respond better to emails, some respond better to actually being face to face and asking those questions. So these virtual Excite days, where we can help you plan out material for a week-long event, a couple-day workshop, where we're just getting people excited to use Teams and promoting it within the organization. And then virtual lunch and learns being smaller, more interactive sessions where we can address questions related to the change. Do you have anything else to add, Darby?
I don't believe so. Just to kind of bring it full circle, Bridget, in your opinion, what does success look like at the end of this awareness stage?
So obviously in the first stage, people aren't going to have mastered the technology. Frankly, they haven't even gotten into learning how to use it. The success at the end of this is that people know that change is coming. That if you ask someone if they know about the Skype to Teams migration, that they say yes, and they know the expectations of what's going to occur next.
Awesome. So the next phase that we have here in the AdCar methodology is the desire phase. And desire is where we want to start growing some interest around this change. And many times this takes addressing some misunderstandings or some negative feedback to get through to the other side of this phase. And that is perfectly normal, even though it can feel like at times the message isn't being received the way you intended. So look at that as an opportunity. Help address those concerns head on now, because now's not the time to ignore them and hope that everyone gets over it. This is another reason why sponsorship is so crucial during every step of the way in a change in an organization. Executive leadership and management play a big role in the narrative here. The trust and respect for leadership is needed to address the concerns and ease the fears and continue to build that excitement. So definitely, work with your organization and make sure you're helping communicate, what is in it for them and why this is a good change for them. From Microsoft's perspective, looking at some of the resources that we can provide during this phase is, again, this kind of builds off of our last phase. So continue with some of those virtual events, giving everyone a space to ask those questions, to air their concerns so that way they can be addressed immediately. We also think this is a great phase to start thinking about a champions program. A champions program is something for the early adopters in your organization, and it has proven very successful for helping long-term adoption with an organization during a change. So what this essentially is identifying some of the early adopters at your organization, some of those key influential people that are picking up the tech fast. They're eager, they're ready to get started, and then they become the first line of support in your organization. The feet on the floor that others can ask questions to, they can speak candidly to, they can ask how they would do something in the program. So it's a very, very helpful process that I would encourage you to start thinking about if it's not something you've implemented before, and kind of who you would like to target to be a part of that champions program. The CSU is going to support you every step of the way. We're not just going to give you this idea and let you out to dry. We are here to help you with the champions program, help you with the communications, help you organize those calls. So definitely reach out to your CSM or your account team if this is something you're interested in. And then finally, you've also got that small group sessions. So this is also a great place to kind of start building some desire, especially if you've got some people that are interested, they're through the phase of feeling threatened by the change and are now a little bit more curious. So this is a good time to kind of utilize some of the workshops that are available to you for free via Microsoft and the CSU, and give a little bit of focused attention here and there to kind of help build a picture for everyone of what's coming and why this is a great change. Anything you want to add there, Bridget?
I think you nailed it, Darby. And, wrapping this up too, the main goal here is to have people aware that change is coming, but then just to also incentivize them to want to change and have that desire to learn more and seek out the learning materials. And then the knowledge phase is really when we talk about, are you empowering your employees to go out and find learning resources to learn more about this change. Where can they go internally to learn more? Who can they reach out to? This knowledge phase, oh, yeah, that's
Sorry.
good. You just stay there. No, you're fine. The knowledge phase is understanding how to change, and then we start introducing the training on these new processes and tools. This can be really scary for an organization. We've seen so many times that in organizations where just the learning and the training phase is the hardest, that we don't have that internally in the organization, there's not enough trainers to scale. And, it's hard to make specific content around teams within your organization. So I'm so happy to say that we already have all of that built out internally for you. If you're not already using Microsoft resources for training, please reach out to the account team, please reach out to your CSM, and we are happy to get you partnered with some of our training resources internally. So if we go to the next slide, I'll kind of talk through what some of these look like. So these self-led training resources and live instructor courses. Microsoft offers tons of free training modules online, and we also have free training through our Microsoft Store teams. Now, I do want to highlight here that in the knowledge phase, not everyone is going to be a master at Teams yet. This phase is specifically focused on getting people familiar with the tool so that they know how to chat, they know how to go into their team, that if you ask them about Teams, they know how to navigate it, they know where to go. So these resources are aimed, we aim to give these to you so that you can host them internally, so that you can start building a great learning repository that people know where to go and know where to reference. So outside of these self-led trainings and free instructor trainings, we also have access to workshops, either Microsoft-led workshops or partner engagement workshops that focus on some smaller groups, maybe your executives, your business decision makers, those that kind of need more hands-on resources guiding them through this change. And then lastly, we have tons of access to handouts and communication for those users that kind of like the quick help guides better than maybe some of the live training. So again, everyone prefers to learn in different ways. Personally, I love self-led trainings where I can go watch the video and pause it. That's how it's reinforced in my mind. I have a lot of peers who just prefer the handout method. So it's important that whatever training mechanism that you decide, that you have all these different types within that program as well. So Darby, if we move to the next slide, I'll kind of wrap up the knowledge phase and kick it over back to you. So, in the knowledge phase, again, we're just learning the basics of the tool. Now, as we move into ability, this is where we inspire more people within the company to be more creative with the tool and to go more in depth. So with that, Darby, I'll hand it over to you to introduce us further.
Awesome. Thanks, Bridget. So exactly like Bridget just said, as we move into the ability phase of this methodology, this is the step where we start practicing and applying those new skills. So that could be moving, XYZ project into Teams, or moving a certain process into Teams, maybe moving, our public webinars are now hosted in Teams, etc. Right? So it's just the baby steps that show the knowledge is sticking and that it's beginning to be applied. So coaching and mentoring from your champions can be very influential here. It can actually be the difference between frustration and excitement about what the tool can do. To kind of recap, at this point in time in this phase, your users know about the change. We've checked off awareness. They want to change. We've made it through the desire step, and they understand the basics of what is coming. So now we need to further their ability. We need to foster an environment that encourages creativity around the tool. So try and cover as many bases as you can so every user feels supported. So from a Microsoft perspective, we can help you cover all those bases. So a great one here is start a training at scale. In one of our past calls, we discussed that we have access to free webinar style trainings. Reach out to us if that's something you'd like to do, because when you start providing a training at scale, now you can start diving a little bit deeper into some of those more focused groups that are maybe a couple steps ahead, or they have some creative ideas. And instead of discouraging that creativity because, we just don't have the bandwidth, we're just learning the basics now, since you've covered other bases of this, you can now kind of dive into some of those more creative focused groups. And we, of course, have some resources to support those focused groups. We have something called customer immersion experiences, which are a deep dive into the Teams tool, a kind of a day in the life for a certain group of users. Also, those workshops that we mentioned previously, those are great to kind of plug in here. And again, we aren't just giving you these ideas to kind of leave you out to go, solve all of this yourself. Bring those use cases to your account team. Say, if a certain agency is ready to move forward, they said, we read about this. We think Teams could help us solve this. We certainly don't want to task you with having to host every single one of those use cases and figure them out yourself. Tap on your Microsoft team. We are here to help you. We are here to help you see the art of the possible of those ideas, to build out some ideas. So we are here to support you during this step, absolutely. Anything you want to add there, Bridget?
I think you covered it all. We can wrap it up with our last step here in reinforcement. So this is our last phase of the AdCar model. This is specifically focused around reinforcing the change in people's minds. So they've gone through the awareness stage, they had the desire to change, we led them through the knowledge of the basics, and then they went into the ability of being able to really evangelize this tool. Now with reinforcement, how are we going to keep this momentum going? We want to make sure that Teams is prevalent along the modern work strategy. So how are you going to get your organization thinking about what specifically they can do to take Teams even further? So if we go to the next slide, we have some resources that Microsoft can help with on reinforcement. We keep going back to the champion program, but this is quite possibly one of the most critical aspects to reinforcement. Within a champions program, it means so much more for users inside your organization to learn from one another than it is from just having somebody from Microsoft maybe stand up and do a training. We see these being most successful when we foster an environment of creativity, where we encourage other parts of the business to talk to one another. And it's always really inspiring to see business units that might never talk to one another, learning from each other and learning best practices, and honestly just becoming partners in the terms of in the sphere of modern work and evangelization of Teams. We can continue to have weekly office hours. I honestly highly recommend this throughout probably your entire year of rolling out Teams. It's really helpful to just have open office hours where people can go in and ask any sort of questions that they need around Teams, but also as an open place to come if they have ideas. One thing that we want to encourage is people to come forth with ideas and encourage them to start, trying these things out on their own. And of course, we can also continue updating our webinars, updating all of those training resources to the most recent content. And then lastly, helping others build upon their foundational knowledge. So this goes back to the business use cases. After they know how to chat, your users know how to go to meetings, they know that they can use their Teams and channels. When people start bringing business use cases to you, bring that to your CSMs, bring that to your account team. We are here to help you build out these specific use cases inside of Teams. We have tons of resources at our disposal to be able to connect you to engineering, to partners, to other resources across the business to be able to develop new solutions inside Teams. So not only are we here to be your trusted advisors throughout the change management and adoption process, we are here once you've gone through that process. We are here for the business users. We are here to be that bridge between IT and the business to help you communicate back and forth and design these new innovative solutions inside of Teams. And then I think the last piece of this, which we don't have on here, but I want to cover it because it's extremely important, is just that aspect of praising users and giving and rewarding users for awesome work that they've done, whether that's through awards, whether that's through call outs from executives. But a big piece of this too is just highlighting those people that have done amazing work throughout the change process. And so, in conclusion, this is the last phase of our AdCar model. As we mentioned at the beginning, the AdCar model is just scratching the surface of what can be done with change management. Again, these are the fundamentals that we follow through the ProSci methodology. And if you talk to your CSM, if you've talked to them about change management, you'll probably hear them referencing the AdCar model. So if it's not something that you've heard before, which I can totally say that before Darby and I started looking into this, AdCar was something that we had not heard before. So if this is your first time hearing it, we're really glad that we can help you walk through those phases. If it is of any interest to dive deeper into change management, please reach out to your CSMs and your account team. We also have resources at our disposal to help you with change management, or even maybe to connect you with the ProSci organization and run a workshop through them as well. So at this point, we don't have any more things to show specifically related to the building blocks of change management. We have a few more slides that we just want to walk through to show you a templating of timeline for these changes. And of course, we will release these to you after as well. So with that, Darby, I'll kick it over to you for our next section here.
Awesome. Thanks, Bridget. So as usual, we like to load up the deck with as many resources as we can. And we realize this is a bit different from, the typical presentations we do on this monthly series, but we thought it was a great time to just kind of stop and pause and see if there were any questions about this process. You're not in a transition to Teams alone. Microsoft is here to support you every step of the way, and we just wanted to make sure that we were getting that message across, that if you did feel stuck or in a lull in the process, reach out, we can help you. So a couple other things we included in this deck where this slide here is some milestones for a successful project. Essentially, this is another great place you can kind of look and think about, where are we right now in this? And based on where we are, if we're stuck, well, then what are the resources we need to be trying to help us move this project forward? So this is a great slide to kind of, check in with yourself and say, where do we stand? What do we have left? And then some of the other slides we have is actually a transition timeline. So if you have not started yet, there is still time to do this well and to do this successfully. Absolutely reach out to us. We're here to help. And we've actually included this timeline starting in March. So if you are ready to get going, it works perfectly. You can get started right on March 1st. And it kind of goes all the way through of just, what do we need to keep offering to reinforce and make sure that everyone feels supported in this transition. So feel free to take this and use this for your own planning and for your own projects. It's exactly what it's here for. And then the last slide we have here is actually just a bit about Teams only mode. This is a bit more of a technical slide to just kind of, it's full of FAQs. We just thought it would be a nice, helpful thing to toss in there since we didn't spend a lot of time talking about the technical side of the house today. Like I said, if that's something you need help with, Microsoft can support you. We just wanted to focus on adoption and change management today. So just keep in mind, this is also available to you. And then I'm quickly gonna click out of our deck here. I just want to show you on some of these slides we discussed earlier. So for example, here we go, slide 9, we're talking about some of the content Microsoft can kick forward. I don't just want to provide you bullet points of what we can offer. We actually have all of the links here to a lot of these resources in the notes. We're going to go ahead and post them on the slide, so that way when you download the PDF, you already have places to go. I don't want to just toss you ideas. I want to give you content to move forward with. So anything that does not have a link, go ahead and reach out to your account team. We will get you set up. Anything to add there, Bridget?
I don't have anything content-wise. I think more so some housekeeping. So as always, we do post these links. We typically get it out about 2 to 3 days after, so expect this probably Tuesday, Wednesday after the long weekend to just give us some time to edit the video and compile all of these documentations. And then before we wrap up, we did end a few minutes early, so if there are any questions, feel free to post them in the chat now and we can address them, or we can add them to our Q&A that we typically add to our slide deck. So I'll just keep the chat open for a little bit. I saw some great things in the chat about people starting champions teams and having user groups that meet either monthly or bi-weekly to cover new changes to teams and Q&A. So it's awesome to see that you're already thinking about some of these champions groups that we discussed in this session. I also see a great question about learning and upskilling resources specific to working in GCC. That is a great question. So when I spoke about those end user self-guided trainings, you're absolutely correct. Those are just general ones that Microsoft posted. Now, if you reach out to your CSM team, we have lots of guides that are specifically for government. So I actually believe, Darby, one of these in here is specifically around GCC too, that you're showing right now, one of the file packets. And then we also partner with a lot of learning and development partner organizations that specifically focus on GCC content. So if you go to them and say, I only want to focus on GCC, they can kind of filter those out to you. And then as well as this series that we've started, we've been doing this for over a year, and everything that we discuss is related to GCC. So the same link that you use to access this meeting is actually a landing page whenever this meeting is not in session. So feel free to go and use all the resources that we've posted on our site as well.
Awesome.
Do you have anything else to add on the learning and upskilling for GCC, Darby?
No, I think that's a great call out. That's exactly why we created this series. We want to give you the government content. So that's exactly what we're providing in these links. These are government specific, so you shouldn't run into any issues there. Every resource we listed today has a government specific avenue.
I also see a few questions that came in about polling and whiteboarding features. So I would encourage you to reach out to your CSM about options for polling and whiteboarding. We have a lot of new features coming out, and with meeting extensibility, there's also a lot more options that have actually rolled out in the past few weeks. So for a feature-wise discussion, we can also try and update our site with some of the new features too, but definitely reach out to your account team for that as well.
Awesome. And we always cover latest releases on here. So as soon as those features drop, you can definitely count on tuning into this call to learn about them.
Oh, that's a great call out too. Somebody has asked about Viva. So thanks for your feedback. Maybe Darby, in one of our next calls, we can just do one totally around Microsoft Viva or post some of our documents to our site too in advance.
Yeah. Excellent idea.
All right, all. Well, as always, thank you for the interaction and the feedback. We hope you enjoyed today. We know it was a little bit different than some of our normal sessions, but as Darby said, we kind of just wanted to pause and take it back to the basics. So if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll compile them into our Q&A. But other than that, have a wonderful long weekend and stay safe and warm out there if you're in any of the snowy states.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. See you next month.